Just asking whether we can start.
Yeah, he's saying, are you okay? Are you live? Starting now, okay, are you live? It's already.
It's live. I think it's live. So, can Sushant just ask if Sushant is ready, then we can get started. Hello, I'm Balaji Sampath, and that's my wife, Kalpana Karunakaran. I'm going to today do this Facebook live session. So, welcome to this Facebook live session. Basically, we are looking at discussing a bit about our COVID relief efforts, as well as what I generally do through Aid India, as well as about Living My Promise. Just to quickly introduce you to Living My Promise, this is a group of individuals who have come together to pledge that they would be able to contribute whatever they have in terms of their wealth as well as time to social causes. You can pick any kind of social cause and contribute a bulk of your resources that you have accessible during your lifetime or afterwards. So basically, the choice is up to you to take up what you would like to do. So I would like to talk a little bit about the kind of things that I am involved in. I'm very passionate about housing for the poor as well as education. So these are two areas that I spend most of my time on. So maybe I can discuss today about that. But particularly, I would also like to talk about what is going on right now, what our team is doing in terms of corona relief activities, particularly for the poorest sections who have been affected very in a major way because of this lockdown. So I'll be talking a little bit about that, and after that, we will also look at overall what can people do in terms of in their areas and so on. So some of those ideas as well. So welcome again to the Facebook live session today, and if you have any questions, please post your questions in the comment section, and then we can take it up. Thank you. So any specific questions, maybe we can take a look at that as well. So maybe you have.
So maybe you can begin by telling us what are the causes you regularly support and the work that you do, given that you've been in the development sector for over 2 decades now.
Yeah, see,
this is even in times that are not the corona times.
yeah. So in fact, in a country like India, I think disaster is happening every day. The situation today is, of course, quite a lot, much more serious. But generally, a lot of the poorest families today across the country do have, I mean, even in the usual times, go through a lot of difficulties. So, as an example, I will just talk about one of the things that basically that we do in a reasonably significant way is that we look at families that are homeless, living in villages, extremely poor families, and we construct pucca houses for them. As an example, I'll just show you a photo here I have. So, like this lady was living in a village near Kanchipuram in this kind of a makeshift arrangement for 20-25 years. I mean, you have to understand that from this is the only house that she has, right? And then what we did was work with her and construct a pucca house like this. So we do that in different situations. So for example, here we worked with a house, this kind of a lady living in a hut like this, and then constructed a pucca house like this. So this is a very important thing because it does bigger, in some sense, builds a huge amount of hope. So we have done this now with almost 450 houses. So this is the kind of huts that they were living in earlier, and uh, and now we've been able to construct pucca houses for them. Many individuals support this. We have a whole team of people who go identify these families. It takes a couple of months to build this. They also contribute. The family, in the beginning, they don't believe that this is going to happen because this has been a lifelong dream. But once we start constructing and they see that we are laying a pucca foundation, they jump into it in a big way. It's like generating huge amounts of hope. It completely transforms the way they live, their aspirations, their hopes. I think it's life changing for them as well as for us. When we go see their the way their life has transformed, it is really amazing. Recently, I went to a village called Pallanjeri, where there were 12 irregular communities. These are like in the north, they call them Mushahar communities in Bihar and so on. In Tamil Nadu, many of these people come under the irregular tribal community, and they go catch rats. in fact eat rats, and basically it's a community which is extremely poor, very very marginalized group. And what we did there, and the usual other villagers were pushing them outside, so towards the cremation ground. So whichever place they had, they would, after some time when the village would expand, they would be get pushed out a little bit more. So we went with the village administrative officer and then got them a space there. Then we managed to construct pucca houses. So that settlement now, a couple of other people from other rural communities have now come and settled down there. So we are fighting for land rights for them, trying to get an education center. So things like this. So building communities, making sure that they get access to resources. I think these are very critical long-term things that we need to do with the most marginalized sections. That is one important area of our work. The other thing that we do is in about close to about 500 villages, almost 450 to 500 villages, we run education centers. So when I mean education centers, these are after school centers. I'll just sometimes people assume that it's a nice big building kind of thing. So this is one of those communities where we're working, and there is an education center, a small one, right? So this person is sitting and teaching. We train this person, and the kids are they conduct the classes outside. Sometimes we conduct the classes on somebody's rooftop. Sometimes, if we can get resources, we construct a small kind of an open place where the children can sit and study. But basically, right now in about 450 villages, we run education programs. We also work with government schools to try and improve quality of education. Make sure children are able to read, write, speak in English. So, for example, build confidence in children by getting them to speak in English. So, a lot of kids, even during this Corona time, because many people have access to cell phones, we've been sending them English content that they can speak and send back and so on, so that they don't forget. And that has built a huge amount of confidence in children. Even earlier, we would get them to walk around in the community. Of course, now that's not possible. Where they would learn to speak, and then they talk about the whatever they have been, what's your name, and so on. They talk with the adults with that kind of with some of the English language, and generates huge amount of confidence and future hope, saying that yes, my child is going to learn well and study. Because more than 50% of the children in India, even if they go to school, are not able to even do basic reading and arithmetic. Studies like us have been part of groups like Pratham as well, and we find that children are not even able to do basic reading, writing, and arithmetic. So building their confidence, getting basic skills done is very, very critical. We also are looking at how to use technology to intervene in many of these places, because you won't get a tutor who can actually teach slightly higher level skills. So basically, our goal, and that's one of the things that we do, is to build like local communities, use local volunteers, and address the problems of poverty as well as of education. So these are the two major areas that we focus on.
Could you maybe also give us a sense of what kind of community mobilization dynamics are involved? For instance, when children learn English, how do they showcase their skills to the community?
Yeah.
The other question would also be, when it comes to building houses, you may build houses for some of the poorest within the community. How do you create consensus around that?
Okay, so let me start with the houses question, because in the beginning that was always a doubt, saying that when you go to a community and you donate, in fact, the same question comes up in the Corona case as well. When you give food to a family which is very poor, won't everybody come and gang up? Actually, that is not true at all. That depends on how you go about doing it. So usually what we find, in fact, we go have a discussion in the community saying that who are the people who are absolutely homeless, who are the people who need the housing, and usually they themselves identify and say that these three people don't have food to eat in the house, don't have access to anything. So therefore, that is the place where we need to construct is a consensus that we first discuss and talk to people and come to, and only after that we start. Of course, after that there'll be people who will come back and say I am also poor, because they see such a nice pucca house coming up. Usually they also ask saying, can you also give us some support? But it is not see, the first thing that we find is in villages, families are willing to support each other. Like even when you give, like right now for the Corona cases, right, situation, lockdown, what we are doing is we are working in now close to 450 villages through our existing networks, contacts, even a few more extra places where we identified and established new contacts. And what we are finding in each of those villages, our volunteer, first of all, is a local person. It's very important to have local people leading the effort everywhere. Like for example, in the Seraknur tribal village where I showed you this education center, this guy is a Manigandan and he's from that local area. So he helps us in the organizing work, because then he will be able to talk to people and explain, boss, look at this, there's some support coming in. Let us make sure that we will get one by one. There needs to be trust that's built. So like education centers are not run by somebody from outside. We don't care if you have a very educated person in the village. We can train people, but you cannot get somebody from outside and build the kind of community network that the local person would have. It is much more important to have somebody who feels for the child, for them to actually work with the child. That is more important than the training, because the training can be done. So that's one of the things that we do. So first, every village we work with a local person, one or two local activist volunteers, also generate some amount of income for those families. Similarly, for house identification, or if you have like how to conduct, like for example, relief activities, you will find that the once the community is involved, suddenly the dynamics change, because now they're all looking at how to improve their lives as well as how to help us getting the stuff done. Like for example, now in the corona relief activities, what we have told in the 450 villages where we're working, we will help any family that requires, but don't try to hoard and don't start off a process where everybody's asking for it. Let us start, because in the first week there were only few families that required provisions, so we would make sure that they were given provisions. The entire community helped, and when we started supporting a few families, they started saying, okay, let us also help a few others. We told them that when you need it, we are there, we will come back again, because our team keeps visiting those villages. In fact, some of them are from that village itself, so they are in contact with our block level coordinators and so on. So creating that local network, I think, is very, very critical in ensuring that the community comes together to support. Similarly, when we do the English program, for example, training children in building their confidence, we also do like a lot of math programs where they can do mental math. So after conducting a class, don't just send them back home. So we do a walk and talk session. So after you learn, you need to walk from house to house. Not now, of course, now it's Corona situation, so they can't do that. But in general, when we usually do this, we would have the children go from house to house, talking to the adults, explaining to them what they have learned, asking them questions, gets people involved. And every week they conduct a small mela kind of thing where the children will do a skit in English. Okay, and also explain it in the local language, like Tamil, for example. And when they do that, everybody gets involved. So it's not just the parents who come in, their friends come in. So in some sense, it builds community momentum, saying our children are doing well. This is not a sense of my child, it is a sense of our children. So our community, our family, our children are doing well. I think that sense, when we build, the community comes together, and we work with the local leadership. Always build the local leadership. I think that is the critical thing. When you do that, this thing that suddenly, suppose somebody lands up with a big truckload of stuff and they start saying, everybody gang up here, organize, stand in a line, distribute material. There is a problem, because there the point is, you have a big banner, you start doing this distribution in a way where everybody starts saying, well, I'm not going to get it, so let me go and grab. But when you talk to them and through the local community do it, they are very, very sensitive. They know who are the people who are suffering, who don't have food, and they will share. See, there is a very big sharing culture, particularly in very poor families, because they, you see, today somebody comes and gives, tomorrow they have to live with each other. One of them goes hungry, who's going to support? I'm not there, you're not there. So it's supposed to be that then their neighbors are going to help out. So they will make sure that they work together. See, that I think that culture is already there, and as long as we support that culture, there is no problem. I've never seen that there is a problem, as long as we do this in consultative kind of fashion. So I think that answers. Anybody has a question, please do post it on the comment section, we will take that.
Yeah, and part
Maybe
of my question earlier.
can we go to the audience questions?
Yeah, these are the audience
Oh, these are
questions.
the audience
Yeah,
questions.
yeah,
Okay.
these are the audience
So
questions.
if you can tell me who asked them also, it'll be good.
Oh, okay, okay. There is a question from Uma, which is, how are you helping in COVID relief efforts? Maybe
Okay.
you could begin by saying, what are the challenges now amongst the most vulnerable communities given this lockdown?
Yeah. See, actually, the COVID situation has created a real big mess, I would say, in a very large, particularly the poorest population, in, I would say, at least three different ways. See, the first thing that has happened is that, first of all, even before the COVID situation, people were expecting that lockdown is going to happen, and to a large degree, there was already a reduction in number of jobs. But after the lockdown, there has been no jobs at all for the poorest sections, right? So they are all daily wages, people who have been earning every single day, and if you don't earn today, you don't have food for tonight. So that is the kind of situation these families are in. Government has promised rations, has delivered in certain places. Some places they are saying they will have to buy it. They don't have money to buy, so you can't buy the rations. So auto drivers, and remember, one person, their families are such that if one person loses income, the whole family is going to suffer, even if the other person managed to bring a little bit, because it was like a family which depended on everybody's income, and now almost everybody in the family has lost income, right? So therefore, what you find, uh, just a second. So what you find, um, one second, can we please do this later? Aparma panna. Sorry, we are on a video now. Okay, so somebody just walked in now. Sorry. So basically, like what we find is that if you look at families that are who don't have basic income, the food supply for that family itself has become a very big issue. Okay, and the second big problem that is happening is there are supply problems in remote areas. That is, the shops today don't have, like for example, when you go to buy dal, you have to wait for many days before the dal supply starts coming in. In fact, I talked to some of the government officers at the senior level, and then they followed up in some of these areas. But that is something that is happening all over the country. So making sure supply happens is something that only the government can do. Because if the shops don't have supply, even with money, it becomes difficult. Then you have to go travel outside, get resources from a bigger shop in a city. So in cities, this problem is lesser, but in rural areas, the supply is still a very big problem. And the third issue that comes up is all kinds of emergency services have become very tough to get. Like suppose somebody falls ill, even earlier it was difficult for them to, some places they had to travel so many kilometers, but now the autos are not drive, you can't even get an auto, and even if you go there, the buses are not working. So from the poorest section, transport for even emergencies has become a real big issue. So these are three big things that are affecting them in very, very large ways. And then the situation of migrants has also become a very serious one. It's a very serious one right from the first time, partly because one, they are not local. So many of them have traveled, like from, we have like a huge number of migrants in, for example, Tamil Nadu, who have come from Bihar, Jharkhand. I'm getting calls from West Bengal, people who are there saying that, hey, can you contact this person in Tirupur, can you contact that person in this city, Erode? Okay, so like people who are working in different places, activists who are working in different places are contacting me and saying, can you work out and reach out to these people and support in Chennai itself, in different parts of Chennai. And it's very difficult to even travel and reach them. So we do that because, like, luckily we have some local volunteers. We've been arranging. Government has given us some passes, so we're able to do some amount of that. But the scale of it is like unbelievable. So how do you reach food to such people? Like, how do you do this? So some amount of trust is required in doing this. So in terms of what we did as the first step is, before we even got our passes and so on, we realized then people started calling us saying there are people, 3 people in my village who don't have food. So this is like not 200 families, because there are some obviously in every village who manage to, if you take a typical village, you talk about 100, 150 families. The 4 families have started going hungry right on almost day one, because last 2, 3 days they didn't have support. Some old woman, some disabled family, somebody who's not been working at all, some his son who'd come and provide food, that fellow doesn't have work now. So if you look at this, people started calling us saying, hi, can you do something quickly right now about it? So first thing that we did was, okay, can we send out money? So we could kind of get everybody to get Google Pay. I mean, most of our people from rural areas don't even have Google Pay, no digital payments kind of thing. So we had to push people to organize, get somebody locally at the block level who would organize that, send them money, get them to transfer that money to this person, take it there physically if possible, talk to the local police officer saying so and so is getting hungry. So what we would do is, every village we started identifying. In the beginning we started with about 30 villages and then slowly expanded. Now about 450 villages, we have monitoring teams. Each village, they keep visiting when they are in the local area, so they are in the village itself. So they quickly see, okay, anybody who's gone hungry, has started, is there enough food for the next 1 week? If you don't have food for the next 2, 3 days, then we go to the local shop, buy the food, supply the food to you for another about a week or so. uh, in case you can get ration food, etc., then that is the first priority, because if government can give, our resources will never match that. So every village we do about 3 houses, 5 houses, 7 houses, that kind of thing, but distributed over a much larger scale. In Tamil Nadu, Orissa, Andhra, Srikakulam, as well as Hyderabad, and number of other states. Bihar also, we have a team of people who are doing that. Rajasthan, who are doing that. So and what we are doing through our existing contacts and networks, so that we know that there is some amount of inbuilt trust. But there are also situations where we don't know, there is a new friend's friend. So we hope that people will be responsible, and this will be money that will be spent effectively. So there we do it in very small scale. So what we do is, first I'll send you the money, you buy it for about 4,000-5,000 rupees, distribute it, get us photographs, get us a bill, and then come back. And then again, I will send you some more money. So you'll spend it in small amounts, but make sure that we can do it in repeated fashion. Also, make sure that we are identifying the poorest who need the help right now, so that there is no hoarding. See, the big problem in a situation like this is people start also worrying, saying, okay, tomorrow if the lockdown extends, what will happen if, I mean, it has extended now, right? So I have food for the next 10 days, but I won't be able to have it after that. So can I know whatever is coming, let me grab it right now? See, that tendency also is there. So you have to people saying, no, don't worry, we are here, we'll come back. So let us reach out to the people who are today going hungry. We've decided not to do cooked food, except in Rajasthan, where one of the teams was handling with migrant workers. We had some kind of community kitchen, because lockdown also becomes difficult to get people to come and go and so on. So we mostly avoided cooked food supplies. Even that is required in cities where people don't, homeless families require that kind of support. But what we did was to supply food for food provisions, basically for one week or 10 days in some places. In certain places which is hard to reach, we would supply for 2 weeks or almost like 20 days. Like some of the rural communities where we're working, we basically, because going there itself is a big headache, and getting, there's no shop in that area, so therefore we would get somebody to buy it in the local block, big panchayat or block office, and then we take it from there and supply it in the hamlet. For that, in those cases, about 20 families, 30 families, we would supply it in bulk, so that we don't have to again go back to that hamlet. But in most other villages, we would do this on a almost every 2-3 days. We would have a person just checking out, making sure everybody has enough food to eat. At this point, we're just focusing on making sure everybody has food to eat, because during the lockdown, that is the single biggest thing. From the migrants' perspective, one big issue that they are raising is also, can we go back home? I mean, the 40 days we are staying here, away from our families, bundled up in like groups of, like if you go to one of the migrant settlements, like you will find that they are living in small houses, where they've been with a construction worker, construction company, and so on. But where they're living in 6, 7, 10 people living in one small room. Okay. So the government should have made arrangements for transporting migrants back to their places, but it's a huge demand from all places. I know that that's not possible right now, but at least ensuring that they have some amount of food supply, some bare minimum that we can do, and also providing some amount of cash requirement, because even for medicines they won't have. So 200 300, they don't even have, many families don't even have 200 300 rupees in hand as a family. So any emergency, it becomes really a big mess, and poor families are going through this. Like there are cases where children are, I mean, there's pregnant women who are delivering babies. No hospital facilities, just some local ayah who has to make sure that this delivery happens. I think this lockdown and the corona situation is setting us back by many years. So the development efforts need to be done even after this, because people who had some amount of money earlier, there was some amount of cash flow for like vegetable vendors, people who would basically buy things and come and sell. They don't have any money left. So when even the lockdown is lifted, how will they get started? So in fact, our team now is like identifying people who need to be given small amounts of, because government has said that some of these people, vegetable vending people, etc., they can go to the market, buy and start distributing. They don't have money to buy. So giving them a small loan right now to get the cash flow started, so that they can go and buy 2,000-3,000 rupees kind of thing, even just providing them that support, which they can probably return after like several months. Right now, for several months, they won't even be able to do that. I think there is a lot that needs to be done for the poorest sections. I think right now the problem is humongous, and when we start working, you realize, keep an open mind. What we do is, we are saying, I don't know how to solve this problem, our team doesn't know how to solve this problem, but people will come back with ideas. Like for example, this idea that with this point problem that vegetable vendors don't have money to buy vegetables, even if the government says go and start selling, they don't have the money to buy, there is no cash flow available, was not a problem I'd even thought about. Samundeshwari from one of our villages called me up saying, "Can there are so many people who are doing this? They find it difficult. Can we arrange some loans? How much loan? 2,000-3,000 rupees, 2,500, 3,000 rupee loans. We should definitely be able to do this, right? So the problems and the solutions will come from the field. Just work with people and trust them. I think that is the single biggest thing that I would say. In terms of what people can do, I know the question hasn't been asked, but that's something I would like to talk about. We can discuss some of those, but this is a question that I would like to talk, because see, organization like Aid India, we can reach out where we are working. People can work through us. There are my friends and a lot of people who are contributing to some of our initiatives, and therefore we are taking this forward, working with them, right? So that we can do, but we cannot reach. No organization can reach everywhere. So the best thing is to trust people around you. Like for example, if in your house there was a housemaid who was working, work through her, because she is working in a slum. She lives in a slum where she knows a lot of poor people and many of them will be going hungry. So give her some money, trust her that she will provide support. Ask her to give photographs if necessary. Everybody today has a cell phone. So give her 5,000 rupees extra, 10,000 rupees extra. Ask her to start distributing, then contribute a little more. Work with people you know. Work with auto drivers who may come to your house, pick up your child. Work with them, call them up. If you know somebody living in a slum, you know somebody living in a village, work with them, provide them resources, provide them support. I think today we need, the single biggest thing that we need today is trust. Trust other people, trust poor people. They will do the right thing. Okay, there might be 1% of the cases here and there who cheat, but rich people cheat a lot. So poor people won't cheat. In fact, poor people don't cheat. Most of them are very, I mean, they know the situation, gravity of the situation. They see the other person who's suffering every day, right? So you give them support, they will provide that support, pass it on to others. I think that in some sense, living the promise is also all about that. Pay it forward, right? So I think that it's the same principle that we should follow. Work with people around us. I hope this corona situation creates more trust in human beings all around us, because it is necessity for today, for us to survive, for them to survive, for everybody to survive. We need to trust each other, because the single biggest problem is if we don't trust and we start creating huge number of monitoring mechanisms, it becomes a big mess. So have confidence that people will do the right thing, and look at the ideas that they come up with. You just check it makes sense, support it. I think that that is the single biggest thing that we can do. Go through organizations like us receive donations. Aid India, for example, a lot of people have been contributing. We do need a lot of support to reach out to all these villages, remote areas. But if you are if you are looking at this and you feel that you can start supporting with your own nearby people who come to your family, work in your family, or come and work and help out and so on, reach out directly, because uh, probably nobody's reaching out to them, right? If they know like 10 migrant workers nearby, provide them some support. One of my friends, one of the people who was working with us also, he has lost his job some time ago. He was part of some workers group, etc. All his worker friends already are in deep trouble, but then they also know a bunch of people. So what we have done is to give him some support, so he is now following it up by asking them to reach out to more people. Suddenly we found that another about almost 60-70 people we were able to support through this mechanism. And we need to keep doing this, because the more people we are able to reach out in small quantity, small amounts, people are not looking at huge amounts of money. 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 rupees of support will make a poor family's life dramatically, transform them, because you get food supply, right? You get some amount of money to get started on your livelihood. I think it makes a very big difference for them. For a family which is more well to do, 2,000 rupees is nothing, but for this family the 2,000 rupees is a difference between life and death. So I think that is something for us to keep in mind. Any other
So,
questions you can?
yes, because you also spoke about your educational initiatives.
Yeah.
So, here is a question from Shailaja.
Mm.
Given that COVID has changed the on site training situation, how do you plan to train government school teachers? They may have a phone, but they may not have a laptop. So, what are your strategies and what have been your experiences?
Okay.
And I'll just also ask people to keep sending in their questions. If you're listening to this, you can also participate by asking a question. You can just type in your question in the comments section below.
Yeah. See, one thing is to look at training government teachers to start using online and some of these things, but it is not something that is easy. It's not going to work out. It's a nice fancy ideas, but it's going to take a while. It's definitely going to take a while. I have worked on technology based education initiatives for quite some time now. What we need is to go through apps. You need to go through mobile phone and apps, because they won't have access to a computer. Children, many places don't have access to that. Many places they won't even have a tablet. In many of these villages, etc., they won't even have a tablet. Cities, some places they may have. So we need to look at providing them existing, like for example, go to YouTube, search out existing good videos, create like a playlist of these are the things that you should go through. There are people who have already done good videos. Send it to them. Ask the child whether you have finished seeing the video. Ask them whether they have a doubt. So that kind of mode will work a lot. We are also we have prepared an app. We've been making an app anyway. I also do some classes for math and science, high school and so on, through a company called Aha Guru, where I do a lot of education related thing. But in this, what we do is now the Aha Guru app, we use that to provide it to children free, and where we are sending them free lessons. So we can send them a whole structured lesson with a lot of videos, as well as problems that they can solve, etc. And for English as well as we are using WhatsApp. See, the point is use what is available technology, and use existing videos. You don't have to have the teacher make the video. The teacher can go through video YouTube, say, okay, these 4 videos are very useful for the child, ask them to go through it, and then come back and have a doubt session with in WhatsApp. I think those kinds of solutions will work well. And as soon as the lockdown is lifted, one of the things that we are planning to do is, at least in the 450 villages, we are planning to basically provide some tablets to children, have a local volunteer, provide some 2 jobs, because nutrition has become a very big issue. So employ one person in the village and we provide them supplies to cook for the children, provide nutritious support because there is an iron deficiency, all of that. So provide the materials required to create some kanji, things, lagi kanji, things like this, so that they will be given some additional food supplements, children as well as pregnant women. And in addition, employ one local tutor who will be able to conduct some kind of classes like this for children, and provide through tablets. They may not be, it's very hard to train everybody to take all the subjects, but definitely they will be able to facilitate using videos, using technology, some amount of stuff. And we will also work with government school teachers to train them on how to use simple stuff like WhatsApp kind of messaging apps, where they can take existing videos and send it. This idea that everybody will come on to Zoom and we'll have a Zoom class, that's all nice and fancy to see, but bandwidth is a huge problem. Making the video is a big problem, and most of the time will be wasted on just, can everybody be quiet, do this, do that, etc. It's not going to work. So you need to use already made good quality videos, identify them and use that, and then maybe have a doubt session that you can have answer either offline or get into a chat discussion for about 10-15 minutes and answer those questions. So I think that during that session, a Zoom kind of session possibly might work. But I think that getting online for children from villages is right now not really possible. Using apps, sending them what they can see offline, even that is going to be difficult because of bandwidth issues. So probably downloaded stuff on tablets, then somebody goes to a village, hands it over, and then make sure everybody's accessing it, maybe using a projector to project some of this out. So I think that we need to do a facilitated technology based learning model, something that we need to think about as we progress. But right now I think all that is a little far away at this point, and just also the trauma that many of these children would have gone through just sitting at home continuously also is a big thing to worry about. So some sort of playing games, etc., without too much contact, I think those are also things that one needs to help organize. But all that is the second step. At this point, I think until at least the lockdown is lifted, first job that we need to do is make sure everybody has food to eat. Okay, so that nobody goes hungry. And the second important job, as soon as the lockdown is done, is to make sure people who were already working a little bit and can get back to work, provide them the required support to get them to work. Maybe a little bit of cash flow support kind of thing is required. The third thing is, some people, like for example, we are helping people now make masks. We have been providing masks to government hospitals. Now we've got people who are becoming like small entrepreneurs. They have not done any kind of entrepreneurship before, but they're making masks. We're buying it from them, cloth masks, basically like getting some simple this thing and providing to hospitals, because hospitals have a big short supply of masks. So many hospitals, even the police has been asking us for masks, right? So right now we have supplied close to about 50-60,000 masks to hospitals and to different corporation sanitation workers and so on, PPE kits, gloves. But you can actually get local people who have lost jobs to actually start making these. So these are also things that a very small amount of support is required. Purchase it and provide it. Anyway, this kind of support is required in a big way. It also can regenerate jobs, right? So I mean, one is to of course go to big companies like 3M and buy masks from them, but the second is to also look at employing local people to make simple masks, right? They may not be able to make this N95 kind of mask, but at least the surgical masks, cloth reusable masks, things like that, we should be able to supply. These are things that we should definitely do. So these are the first 2 important things, and the next thing that we will start looking at is things like education, looking at nutrition for children. Extremely important thing after the lockdown is lifted.
So a question from Venkat. You were a JEE topper. Why did you choose this path of development work? You could have chosen a career in science or engineering. So what was your inspiration, and what motivated you to get off the beaten path? This is from Venkat.
I know Venkat always prompts me to answer such questions. I think this is Give India Venkat, I'm assuming, right? So yes, I think first of all, this is more fun. Science and engineering is fun. I still do a lot of science teaching, and that's a lot of fun as well. So it's not like I'm giving up science in one way. Yeah, this I used to be on into mobile phones and cell phones, looking at how technology communication between cell phones work, cell phone tower to the mobile phone. Okay, so that kind of stuff I don't do any longer. I did that for my PhD, and after that, now it's almost like 25 years since then. So basically, like it was good fun. That was also good fun, I would say. But basic science engineering, what you learned is very useful here. Like looking at how to make houses work well, right? I know it's not the kind of science I had learned with electronics communication, but even that requires some amount of engineering thought process, right? Like because if you use a sheet roof at the top, like in this case, I can maybe show it to you. Uh, Let me just see this. Okay, so like if you use a single sheet, we find that that becomes it gets too hot in a house like this. It becomes too hot, right? So what we do is we put one more layer on top, and there is an air gap between them. So then the whole thing becomes a lot cooler during the summer as well. So in fact, people can then live inside the house. So when you work with them, you'll find that there is a lot of engineering requirement and a lot of things that you need to think through, like systems, process, all of that. Definitely, we need to think through. I use now a lot of technology for how to reach children in rural areas. So it's not like I've given that up. Uh, this is a lot more satisfying work because one, you're interacting with people directly. You're working. See, when I go to sleep, I can see that, okay, today, two families, we finished the house construction. 70 families, we were able to provide food support. So many children have basically learned. It's very satisfying. I mean, it is a lot more satisfying than anything else in life that we can do. So I feel that, and one visit, and then for the next one, I mean, nowadays I'm not able to visit as much as I used to. Earlier I used to travel like almost 20 days. Now I have all these other classes and other many things, so I do a lot of coordination based thing. But whenever I manage to visit for the next 1 month, I'm very thrilled. I'm very happy because I see that, okay, what we are doing makes sense, makes a difference in somebody's life at some level. As human beings, I think that is important, right? So earning is important. I know that money is important. I mean, we need money for doing all of this work as well. But uh, ultimately, what do you do in life? You're not going to carry the money with you. So you live, you have time given to you, how many ever years you are going to live. You have things that you can do with your time. And when you make a difference in people's lives, you make a difference, you feel that the time that was given was used productively. And I think that's pretty much it. So this is a lot of fun work. I'm not doing this because it's a sacrifice or it's because it's something I must do because it's a duty. I'm doing this because it's fun. The day it stops being fun, I'll probably stop doing. It is fun to do this. There are moments where it's a lot of stress and difficulty, but every work will have that. So, but the point is, at the end of it, you know you're doing something meaningful, contributing to something that is causing a bigger change. And I think that thought keeps things going. So I think that is the important reason. And Venkat, I do think I keep doing science because development work involves a lot of science. Assume that this doesn't require any kind of thinking, it comes from the heart and no brain. That is wrong. You need a lot of thinking process behind it. Look at systems and use whatever knowledge you have. Ultimately, everybody brings skills and knowledge. Use those skills and knowledge, use that for this kind of work where we are able to actually help people. Ultimately, I don't see this divide between for profit, non profit. I think businesses and non-profits should all do good work. At the end of it, if there is a company which is actually creating harmful products instead of actually providing useful services, I don't think such a company should exist, right? So ultimately, are we reaching out to people who need it, and particularly the poorest who need it, and make sure that their lives get a little better than they already are? I'm not saying we can solve all problems, but can we make their lives a little better? I think that thought process is the important thing that we should look at. I mean, so
There's a question from Ujwal. In your view, is rural distress more acute than what we see in urban India? Since you have both experiences, it would be valuable for you to weigh the two on some kind of scale and.
Yeah. See, the urban area, the people who are living, who are struggling in urban areas, particularly if you see in urban area itself, there are two categories. There are communities in urban areas in slums. So, like for example, we work in several slums in within Chennai, and if you take any of the slums, like just behind Mylapore, near the Mylapore railway station, there's a huge slum that is there. And similarly, you can look at Arepuram as a slum. You have rich communities and you have poor communities living side by side. But if you look at the community inside a slum, they have slightly different problem. There's huge amount of congestion, like space is really really small. So there are those kinds of issues, but there is still a sense of community. If you look at migrant workers, people who have come from outside, there is very little sense of community. There is fear. There is, because they're surrounded by people they don't know, and surrounded by many poor people they don't know. Sometimes there is, within a community, people help each other out, but there's also competition for resources between communities. So for migrant communities, for urban families, urban communities which are coming from outside and staying, new people who have just come into the city, I think it is quite scary. A situation like this, particularly, is quite disastrous. They're very worried, and they are very fidgety also in some sense. That is one of the reasons that they are actually trying to get out, saying, "Can we go back home?" They feel that they are aliens in a particular city, right? So they feel like they are not. There is no support structure for them. People in slums have access to shops. Shops are still open, so they can go out. Access to money is a little bit more, so their life is a slightly little better, I would say, than the rural poor, because the rural poor have two, three problems. One, there is no support structure that they have access to either. Shops are nearby; they have to travel quite a bit to go and get it. Second problem is there is really no money access. Like, whereas what will happen is, in a slum, somebody's made, some people will be crazy and say, "I will not give you money," but there will be some person will say, "Okay, my maid I will support extra," and that money actually flows to all the poor people. So when we talk about this trickle down theory, when you give money to the richest, it never trickles down. But when you give money to the poorer section, it trickles down always. It actually goes down to everybody. So when you give money to one housemaid, the money goes to other people in that community. So therefore, there is some flow of money in an urban slum. But you take a rural hamlet, like you take an irregular community, no jobs, no people, nobody coming there. In fact, no shops, no food at all. I mean, absolutely nothing coming in, no food coming in, and nothing was saved up from before either. So there are, of course, landowning, sometimes farming families which would have access to some amount of grains at home. They would be slightly better off in one way, but many landless laborers families have no access to any kind of support structure. So I would say many places rural families are in, the poorest of the rural families are in very bad shape. The poor, but not necessarily very poor, with some amount of land, are in a slightly better off shape. Urban poor in communities are in better shape than the rural poor in that sense. But because they have some access to shops and all that is still open. I mean, governments make sure that cities have shops still open, right? That way. But the numbers are huge. Crowding is a lot more. So if corona kind of illness starts spreading, then it's very, very dangerous in an urban slum. In rural areas, they are a little bit more spread out. So you can talk about some sort of social distancing, at least in rural areas. In slums, it's extremely, almost impossible to do that. How will they not come into contact? Do they just get out of the, they live in a small one room, like not even a proper room, right? It's smaller than this particular house. This room that I'm talking about is their entire house. You have 4 people, 5 people there. They have to get out of their house, and when they get out of the house, they're already in facing the next person from the next house, right? So urban slums have that huge social distancing kind of issues, not even possible in those areas. So that health and hygiene is going to be a big problem there. Water is a big problem in urban slums. Rural areas have different types of problems. Urban areas have different types of problems. Migrants have a completely different type of problem. So there you need to work on different situations where they are, the community is not, they don't have a community. They've been living there for a short time. They don't know the language, right? So a whole bunch of migrants are talking in Hindi from Jharkhand, and everybody around them, fishing community people, and they are all talking from Kanatu. They are all talking in Tamil. They can't even understand each other, and so everything gets very angry very quickly. It's because it's only what they can see. They're not even able to explain and translate, right? So that support structure, I think, for migrants is a big problem. The police also does not really support them. There is also this fear that migrants are people who lead the crime in that area, stuff like that. There's been a lot of bias, right? I mean, India is full of biases. Everybody's talking about another community, they, them is the problem, right? And so when you keep pointing out somebody else as the problem, there is this fear that is created, and at some scapegoating. Yeah, I mean, so that way the point you have to understand is this is a problem that can be solved by coming together, not by dividing, but by actually coming together and working together. So when you try to lay the blame on people and push them out, it creates more mess. Okay, if you try to say migrants are the problem, obviously migrants are going to get more frightened and they want to get back to their houses. And I mean, I don't know how you can blame them for gathering in big numbers. So the point is, can we make the fear go away? Because this is a long, huge problem for a long period of time. So we need to address this in a much more sensitive, careful way.
There's a question from Prabhu. How do you think a sustainable education program can be ensured for the poorest sections in the community?
Is that a question regarding generally, or right now after the
I think
COVID situation?
more or less a general sort of question, or
General
some
question. Okay.
general principles that you can draw out from your work.
Okay. So basically, what I would say, for example, I'll give you an. I'll start with a simple case. There is a tribal school that is in a village near this place called Anaikat. It's a uh, it's a hill. It's almost like Jardan Kollai, that area, and you have to climb for almost 6 hours to get to that school. Government appoints a teacher from outside. That teacher doesn't go to that school. Okay, you will see that in Jawad Hills. You will see that in many places. Teachers many times wouldn't go. Why wouldn't they go? They have their families in the city. They are not going to go to that place to teach. So they usually appoint a local person, pay them some 2-3 thousand rupees, and give them a leave letter. So if any officer comes to visit, which is still rare, their leave letter would basically have a date at that time put in. So that means they won't visit. My point is, more and more remote areas, why not shift our model to local community teachers? You are from that village, you become a teacher, we will train you. Training is easier to build than a heart, right? People who say, I have passion for helping my village children, I have already been conducting classes. Like every village, what we do, for example, is identify a local girl who's, people call them akka, she's already been helping out. She may have only studied up to 8th standard. The point is, we will train her on all the subjects required. We will keep providing the training, but she's going to teach every day. And when she teaches, the children come and say, Akka has done this and so on. Village elders praise her. She feels very powerful and important. We are solving many problems through that process. So, sustainable education, trust in the local person, build skills. I think that that is the real solution. As long as we have very qualified teachers but coming from outside, they will always ill-treat children from the poorest families. Partly there is a caste problem. There is, like, the Dalit section children, for example, come to a village, come into a school, village school. The teacher sometimes treats them differently. You children cannot learn, you cannot learn. I mean, this you cannot learn nonsense is something that we propagate because we have this general attitude of saying others are different, they don't have the ability. There's no big DNA business that's happening here, right? If you teach well, the child will learn. So therefore, do you have, like, the child knows that there is this bias in the teacher, particularly primary school. The child may not understand what the teacher is saying, may not understand the subject, may not understand science, may not understand math, but the child understands emotions. When the teacher refuses to touch the child, the teacher does not like the child. So that is very clear to the child. The child knows emotionally that this teacher does not like me. Are you going to learn from a teacher who does not like you? Okay. You want sustainable, good quality education. Put teachers who like those children. Put teachers from that community. Hire teachers for the fact that they like children, like working with children. Okay. Get the local community to hire it and provide support for them, provide additional inputs. Qualification comes later. Qualification can be trained for. Okay, passion cannot be trained for. Look for people who are saying, I want to improve the lives of my children. I want to make sure that the children are doing well. So I think that that is something that we can really use to build a sustainable model for education. Add extra resources, have videos, have internet, have additional quality content put into the village, but make sure that the teacher who is running it is from that hamlet, from that community, so that they can basically make sure every community learns. It's something that the teacher must be proud of. Somebody who lives 5 minutes walk or 2 minutes walk from the school. So then you will find that the quality of our schools improves. Get local communities, trust them, and say, your school's children, your education is something that we will give to you. You run. I will set the building. I will give the resources. As the government, I'm talking about, not me. I'm saying government builds the resources, builds the building, do all that. But the teacher, let it be from the community. You're providing jobs, one. And secondly, you're making sure that there is somebody who's passionate about learning. Organize assessments and do all of that. Have extra people to come in. Let the current teachers become like trainers, but let the person who's actually transacting with the children, who's educating children, be the person locally. Okay, with the same cost, you can do a lot more. That would be sustainable education. Also focus on local skills. You need children. See, ultimately, education is about building confidence. Today's education system is breaking confidence. Can we get children to start feeling confident? Why did we take up English? It's a foreign language. Why should we get children to learn it? Because today English is seen as the language that you need to know to be cool, to basically be the person who is going forward. So poor people, particularly when the rich are, if you look at our conversations happening in English, right? So when the rich are sending their kids to English schools, poor want their children to learn English. So when you say you can learn English, forget the grammar. Make, like, the Britishers have come and destroyed India. I mean, like, for so many years, right? The least we can do is to make sure all our poor people at least destroy that language. Speak in English, say it in. I mean, completely screw up the grammar. Do that, but make sure that children have confidence in speaking it. So today, when you go to any of our villages, children will come up to you and say, "What's your name? What are you doing? This thing? I am so and so. My father." They will be able to come and speak to you in English with high confidence. Their grammar may go for a toss. It doesn't matter. How does it matter, right? They will use a lot of Tamil words mixed with English. How does it matter? The point is, ultimately, education is about building confidence. So one of the things that we do, for example, is to get local people who have different types of skills to come and conduct, like, we call these tinkering labs. I have a photo. I don't know if I can search for it right now, uh, but let me see if I have it. I can show you what we do in that. Is basically we get like a local cycle mechanic. He's basically been working for a while conducting stuff like that. So we get these people to come and conduct classes for children, and then they feel like teachers. So I'll show you here. These girls in that village have been taught by a local cycle mechanic. So the cycle mechanic has now become a teacher, and that's a big deal, because for him that was something. They came and told me, can you do this in many more villages? So we have now done this in about 20 villages almost. Okay, now if you see this, these good kids have learned how to repair mobile phones. Kids from villages are now learning these kinds of things, and everybody is a teacher. Everybody has a skill. So build up those skills, take those skills, prioritize them. It is far more important for a cycle repairman to come and show how much science and technology is there and train them. A teacher, usually school teacher, cannot open a simple thing, right? So that is bookish knowledge. So you need that. I'm not saying that you don't need math, you don't need English, Tamil, writing, reading. Of course you need all of that, but you also need this. Every knowledge is important. I think if you want to talk about sustainable education, we need to build a model of this type, with local tutors, local teachers who have a passion for making sure that the community improves. Education is not about transmitting some knowledge to some people. It is about transforming how people live, right? So that, and build confidence. So I think that is the important thing about education. So that is how education should be done.
So here is a question from Dilip Ravada. He says, I've been donating a percentage of my earnings for many years now. My friends know and commend it, but they never do the same. The only exception is calamities like this one. This has always bothered me. Did this happen to you? Did the inaction of people you know bother you? And you have suggestions on how to inspire more of our friends?
Yeah. So basically, this is something. Okay, I would generally say don't expect too much. Okay, people who want to help will help. Yes, if there is an environment of helping, more people will help. So definitely that is important. As long as there is continuous requirement like this, people keep saying this, there will be people who will basically come out and start supporting. But I would say creating examples. I'm very happy that you have been doing this. My point is, don't bother about what others think. Make your contribution and see whether that contribution is actually helping out and reaching out to more and more people. And as long as you can make a difference with it, share it with people. Definitely share it with people. Some people will contribute, some people won't contribute. But I'm not very sure that we keep on exhorting people saying contribute, contribute. They will. I think when they feel it, they will. When they start to see that it makes a difference in their own lives, they will. Ultimately, who are losing? The people who contribute are not the ones losing, right? We actually, that we gain so much in the process. It's such an enriching experience. So the people who are not contributing, when they will realize, oh my God, I should have done this 10 years ago. So I think that we don't need to uh, convince people to donate. Share it with people. Tell them what you are doing. A few will come forward. Let them also share, and then slowly more and more people will do it. Will 100% of the population do it? No, I don't think so. Do we need 100% of the population to do it? Also, no. Okay, people pay their taxes. Government's supposed to do their work. What we need are people who are interested in these issues, willing to take this up, share so that other people get to know. And during calamities, at least come forward, because that is when you need a lot of support. People will come forward. But during normal times, let people do. I mean, I see. My point is, people who are supporting and doing should not get disillusioned by the fact that others aren't coming forward. I don't expect too many people to come forward. That doesn't mean people don't. I do have a lot of my friends contributing, but they've been seeing this like that. This is some work that I've been doing for like almost now 25 years. So they know that. Uh, but quite a few of them are contributing. But from the number of friends that I have, the number of people who are contributing is still a small percentage. Okay. Will others contribute? I'm sure. People who did not contribute for the last 20 years now suddenly started contributing now. And there are people who have been doing this very regularly. Some people have jumped in and started becoming full-time people who have basically got into full-time activists. One of my friends was in working in Hughes in Washington, D.C., did PhD with me, and now he's working in Andhra Pradesh and is basically doing a lot of work with farmers and farmers collectives. He's doing a lot of work in the corona relief activities as well. So we have many people like this who have decided to come back, start doing this kind of work. But I think as long as you create an environment of people doing their work with passion, there will always be people who feel like I want to get into it and start doing. Keep it up. Keep going, informing them about what you are doing. Talk about the fun stuff that's happening. They are missing out on the fun. I don't think we are missing out in that sense. People who don't get into it, people who don't contribute, they are missing out. So they will start joining in at some point. Maybe their lives also require other things. Maybe they need to save some money for their families, etc. See, there is always this insecurity. How much money is enough for you is something that you never know, right? So people can keep doing it, but remember, time is not in our hands. So as we go take more and more time, that time is lost. So the earlier people jump into it, the earlier people start doing things, the more fun they're going to have in their lives, more satisfaction they're going to have in their lives. I don't think we should get worried by people not contributing. Just because you contribute, you should not start expecting that everybody 10 other people will contribute. You should actually be happy that 2 other people contributed out of a group of 40, 50 people. If you can if you one person does it and you can inspire 1 or 2 more people to do, I think you're doing well. You should just be happy with that. uh, Keep informing. People will contribute. See, I don't think human beings are built to not support when some support is required. Some people go a little bit out of the way and start doing things. They should continue doing without worrying about it. Like, for example, 2 things I strongly tell myself and tell our team: don't expect any sort of gratitude from anybody, because we are not really helping them in any big way. They are helping us help them. Right now, they are in a situation, they should not even have been in that situation. So don't expect gratitude. Don't start saying we helped this person, now this fellow has become like this, wants more, etc. Everybody is a human being. So remember that, and don't expect any sort of gratitude from anybody. This is not even a good thing to start with, because it's important for us to know that what we are doing is a very small difference that we can make. If we could make it, we should be very happy. We should be grateful that they gave us this opportunity to make our lives meaningful. Okay, that is the first thing. Don't expect everybody to jump in and start. And don't start thinking that people who help you now are angels and the people who don't are devils, right? So the point is, all the people who are not able to support may have personal reasons for not supporting. Maybe tomorrow they will end up doing something much more spectacular, much more significant than we are doing. Maybe they are looking at us and looking for gaining some inspiration. So let us be a little bit more humble in this process. So today, whoever is helping, be very happy with them and together try to make a difference. But I don't think we can judge people who have not contributed now, or we don't know what they are going through. Okay, because at some point they are also wired to start supporting. They may be doing things in ways that we don't even know. Some of us are talking about it. Some people help and are so quiet, they don't want to talk about it. I've met people who have done so much more and won't come on Facebook like this and talk. Right? So there are people who will just be quiet, they will not talk about it. They run away from any kind of TV camera, etc. I know that they could have done that and then their work would have inspired 5 more, but they don't want to, but they're doing great work. So sometimes they may not contribute in ways that we expect. Sometimes they contribute in very different ways. So
Here's a question from Hemant. For a long time, education has been driven and facilitated by educators. But going forward, it looks like the onus will be on students. So, how do you bring about a change in a scenario where students take ownership and initiative of their own learning.
Hemant, I really wish what you said was true, that it is going to be a permanent change in the education scenario. But in all likelihood, probably as soon as this thing is over, everybody will go back to the regular schools and so on. Hopefully not. I'm not a pessimist. I'm hoping that there would be a much more longer term permanent change. At least the minimum that can happen. I really feel that if we can put education in the hands of children, that they take control of what they're learning, that is the single best thing that could have happened because of this COVID situation. If that really happened, we have dramatically changed the way the world works. Because today, if a child wants to know that I can get, like today, what we have done is to create a very terrible system where the teacher says whether your subtraction answer is right or wrong. This question's answer is right or wrong. The child has written an answer. Whether my answer is right or wrong is something that the child cannot judge, the teacher can judge. You have taken away the power of, do you know something? Is not something that the child can answer. It's a question only the teacher can answer. We have taken that power away, which is the most terrible thing that our education system has done. If we can change this, we can tell children to figure out, do you know this? You tell me whether you know it. And if the child is able to answer, yeah, I think I know how to do subtraction, I know how to do this, but this I don't know. If we can give the power of children judging whether they know something or not, that builds huge confidence, that builds huge skills and ability. And I think that is dramatic. If that can be done, fantastic. Second big thing that can be done is make a lot of different courses, online content, everything available, because people are already now going online, but make it much more streamlined and systematic. And then let children choose. Now, instead of saying I have these 5 subjects I will learn, a child can say for the next 2 months I'm going to pick up a certification course on doing this. I'm going to do a certification course on mobile repair. I'm going to do a certification. So in schools, you can transform it to short 2, 3 months, 4-month courses that they can take, and they can learn from YouTube. They can learn from different kinds of online courses, and then they can have teachers do some sort of, they can go and do an assessment. And that process, if we can get that done, and they get certificates for it, etc. And at the end of the year, we say, okay, here is a credit system. I think that would be a huge transformation. Okay, I'm not getting my hopes up, but if that can happen, in some way, I would say it's great that this happened, because that would have revolutionized the way our world itself is. But I'm not getting my hopes too much. But yes, if that, at least I'm hoping that a small part of that can be injected into our education system.
So here is a question from Sutikshan Mohan. How do you manage between your work for JEE training and social work?
Uh, See, basically, the first from 1996, I was doing this full time for social work. I started my JE classes in 2001. I was doing about uh, one batch for 3 hours every week, and then after that, I started increasing it in from 2012 onwards. But till 2012. So from 96 to 2012, pretty much I had all the time available for doing Aid India work. So I built up a good team. We have a very good team of people. So today, I mean, of course, during this Corona time now, all day I'm focused on the relief activities, coordination of that, and evening I conduct classes from 5:30 to 8:30 every evening. I conduct a live session for my students for JE as well as NEET. But uh, earlier, what I was doing, I would basically spend significant amount of time. Last several years, I have now been spending a lot of time also on preparing content. But periodically, I would spend time also developing content for rural areas. Like for example, I developed a fractions course. I'm very happy. In fact, I'm more happy about that than my usual JE classes, because almost 2,500 children have now learned fraction using that. When I went into one of the villages, the kids basically, when they saw me, because they had seen my videos and so on, it was amazing, stunning. They came and like said, ask any questions, sir, I will answer this, that, and so on. It was, I mean, stunning. I'm going to spend more time on doing that. But I would basically, what I've been doing now off late last several years is focusing on team building activities, because our current team is able to take up. So I focus a bit more on strategy, on what they are doing, reviewing, etc. Uh, of course, during the Corona now, I'm spending much more time on the Aid India work. But long term, my plan is to look at how we can take digital content, digital technology into rural areas. So that hopefully will merge some of what I'm doing otherwise. But my JE content is pretty much done and ready. And so therefore, I focus a lot only in the evening. So I spend 3 hours. So time wise, I can split it up. So I spend 3 hours every evening conducting classes. And during the day, I focus on most of my with villages and rural areas and so on. So
I think that's it.
Okay, I think we are really running out of time, right? So, yeah, with this, I will close the session. So, all of you, I would like to just talk about both Aid India as well as Living My Promise. Aid India's website is www.aidindia.in. You can go there, donate if you would like to for some of our work. You can also contribute. Again, I want to emphasize, please work with your local contacts, with your local organizations that as well as housemaid and people like that, directly, because then you will be able to support people that other people may not be able to reach. But otherwise, you can also contribute through Aid India for many of our relief activities and efforts. And Living My Promise, many more people can join. Anybody who wants to get into this work and wants to contribute for whatever cause you feel like, please do join the Living My Promise group. You can like the Facebook page for Living My Promise, and start contributing in any way you feel like, because ultimately this is a movement. It doesn't say you must do this or you must do that. Make a difference. Reach out to poor people all around us. There are people who need help. Reach out to them in any way you feel is meaningful to you as well as to them. Thank you very much for watching. We will probably come back at some other point to discuss some more things. Thank you very much for being here.